Hey guys, it's Snublocket, and recently I've been getting into the card game Magic the Gathering, and just recently I bought the Jace vs. Vraska Dual Decks set, and I thought I'd just do a quick review of it, just let you know what I think. I am not a professional Magic the Gathering player. I keep bumping this, god damn it. I am not a professional Magic the Gathering player by any stretch of the imagination. I was in one tournament when Born of the Gods, the pre-release for Born of the Gods, but I lost pretty much instantly and everything. So I'm not a professional player, but I would still like to give my opinion, kind of give you my thoughts on after I played these decks a few times against friends, against family, against kind of myself. I'm just kind of let you know how I feel about the decks, kind of how they work. So first on today's agenda, I will be talking about how the decks themselves function. Next, I will be talking about how the decks face against each other, because as you can tell, it's, there it is, a dual deck. So I'll be talking about how they function against each other, kind of how they feel when battled against each other, because that's how they were meant to play. That's how Wizards of the Coast built the decks. Finally, I'm going to be talking about who the target demographic for this is, who I feel it is really targeted to, and who should buy it, who should forget about it, who should really think, I might want to buy this. So without further ado... So Jace's deck features 1 Mythic, Jace Architect of Thought himself, 5 Rares, 11 Uncommons, and 19 Common cards. It also features 24 lands in the overall deck. So how does this deck function? Well, first thing is it's got a low average mana cost. A lot of the stuff is 4 and lower, which is where you want it for kind of, I feel, a 60 card, 24 mana deck. You don't want many stuff up above, 4 mana. I don't know what I'm saying. But point is that I feel like that's a good place where you want to have kind of the bulk of your stuff. So what is down there? Some pretty average stuff. I don't think you have any other rares below 4 mana, which is kind of unfortunate, kind of defeats kind of where you want the deck to be. It's got a pretty good diversity of actual instants and sorceries. It's got some good counters, some good draw cards, it's got quite a bit of counter target spells. It's got quite a few kicker stuff, which I think is interesting that they have. Both of these decks feature a pretty wide array of kicker spells. Another thing that you might actually find interesting is it's got quite a few cards from older sets. It's a pretty interesting mix of kind of older and newer cards. For the bad things, it's kind of all over the place. There's not much synergy in this deck I found when playing it. It was kind of helter-skelter. It kind of nothing really mixed all that well. Everything was just kind of all over the place. Another thing I found really bad, which is there's no powerful creature. The most powerful creature is an XX card where X equals the number of cards in your hand. And so that can get you up to 7, a 7 card easy, but that's about it. Most of the other powers it feels really stilted and lowered. Finally, there's no resource or resurrection or creature removal, which I found a big problem, especially since Vraska's deck, features quite a bit of creature removal, so there's no way to bring those creatures back once they're out of the field. There is no creature removal in this deck, except from, maybe discarding cards if you count that as creature removal, but there's no direct, once it's on the battlefield, there is no way to get rid of that other than combat damage. So Vraska's deck features 24 land, 9 forest, 11 swamp, 2 tainted wood, a rogue's passage, and a Golgari Guildgate. So you got a pretty good diversity of lands to kind of give you some of the idea of what kind of other lands you can be. Because when I was first coming out, I was like, there are other types of basic lands? What is this? So it gives you kind of a good idea of what other types of lands there are. It also features 1 mythic, Vraska the Unseen herself, 5 rare, 10 uncommons, and 20 common cards, as opposed to Jace's 11 uncommons and 19 commons. So what do I like about this deck? It's got a lot of creature removal. Quite a few of the abilities, the kicker costs of some of the creatures do provide direct creature removal, as well as some -2 abilities or whatever. Just some really good creature removal, quite a lot of it. And you got some pretty powerful creatures. You got Druin Grudoin, whatever, which is a 4/3 for 6 mana, but has a pretty good cost. You got Reaper of the Wilds, 4 mana for a 4/5. What? You just got some really powerful stuff here, some really powerful creatures, as opposed to Jake's kind of lackluster creatures. Another thing is that there's not a whole lot of high-costing mana stuff. There's 2 5 manas, which is Acidic Slime and Vraska the Unseen, and then 1 6 mana, which is Druin Groudon, and the rest is 4 and under. Vraska is arguably a better Planeswalker, which I think is interesting, because for 1+1, until your next turn, if a creature attacks her, that creature gets destroyed, so it's kind of like, I don't want to attack her with my most powerful stuff, because I'll lose it.
And it's just got a really good variety of effects, like kicker, -1s, losing life, whenever creatures enter the battlefield. It's got a really good variety, and in a good way. Like I talked about Jace's deck, how it kind of felt kind of all over the map. This feels more focused in its variety. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels a lot better. One of the bad things, though, is it kind of can be slow to start. I mean, I know it has everything's a low mana cost, but because it's a 2-color deck, if you don't have that color correction, like I've found a few times, like I was just getting forests, and I had a hand of mostly black cards, and so I couldn't play anything. It felt very annoying. Some other cards, they'll feel kind of wasted if you don't pay the kicker cost, because the kicker cost is really nice. And, like, where is it? Let me see if I can find it. It's a creature, it's a 3/3 for 4 mana, and if you pay 2 more mana, it'll destroy a target non-creature permanent. So you can destroy a land or an artifact with that. But again, if you don't pay that, you paid 4 mana for a 3/3, so it just it feels a bit wasted at times. Just that's probably the biggest thing I had wrong with this deck, is that some of the cards I was like, oh, I should have done that other effect or waited till I could play that effect. So I could get a cool effect out, and some of these cards just feel very wasted if you don't play them correctly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So who do I recommend this for? Do I recommend it for hardcore players? Absolutely not. All these cards have been seen in previous sets. There are no brand new cards. These are all reprints of cards that you've probably already seen. If you're a hardcore player, you're probably like, oh, I have that card already. And honestly, the decks aren't really hardcore put together, so you could probably construct a better deck by yourself with the cards you already have. What about collectors? Again, no, because you probably already have the cards that are in these decks. There are no brand new cards, or no cards that haven't been seen. These are all reprint. I wouldn't recommend it if you are a hardcore collector. If maybe you're an avid collector or a brand new collector, maybe, just so you can kind of see, because there are some reprints from some serious older sets, like 2002 sets maybe. Okay, maybe not that far back. I'm not an expert on this stuff by any stretch of the imagination, but you get my point. There are some older set cards that, maybe you can take a look back and go, oh, that's cool, that's how that game used to play. What about casual players? Players that have played the game for a while but don't play hardcore? Maybe. You might not have some of these cards. I know I didn't have quite a few of the cards that were in that deck, so gave me some new cards to kind of play around with, maybe construct a deck. Actually, some stuff I was pretty interested in, like the Planeswalkers. I don't have that many Planeswalkers, so it kind of gave me some good cards to play around with, and I actually have now a blue deck based on Jace's deck, so. But the people I recommend it the most for are beginners. If this is your first buy for Magic, go for it. These are 2 very well constructed decks. If you and your friend have not gotten into the game Magic, or maybe your friend has some cards and you want some cards, buy it. It's a really good way to introduce. It gives you a pretty wide array of gameplay mechanics, such as Suspend, Kicker, those are the only 2 I can think of, but point is that this gives you a pretty good idea of what kind of some of the gameplay mechanics in Magic the Gathering are. And so if you are just starting out or you don't have any cards, this is a good way to kind of get your way into the game and kind of get yourself started with a pretty well set up deck. So that's what I recommend it for. I recommend it for beginners and maybe casual people, so that they kind of have some extra cards or maybe some new cards to play around with. But other than that, I don't really recommend it for anything above the casual level. So I hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time.